All right, welcome everyone. This is a Viper Professional Training and Sport webinar. Today's date is January 14th, 2019. This is a Monday night webinar, and the title of tonight's webinar is Using Object Types and Using TrueTrend. And as everyone knows that's been to our webinars or our live trading room, everything that we say and do at Viper Trading Systems is for educational purposes only. Futures trading, forex trading, any kind of financial instruments trading involves risk. Therefore, there's always risk of loss. You should only trade discretionary capital, and that is money that you can afford to lose. Nothing said in this webinar, other webinars we have, our live trading room or anything else, should ever be construed as trading or investment advice. And as always, everyone does trade at their own sole discretion. Any questions on the disclaimer? All right, if not, we're going to go ahead and get started. By the way, Lewis, on that question, I went ahead and put the question log in kind of a scroll mode, so I'll keep an eye on it, but just I won't forget you. Okay, let's go ahead and show a chart, because what I want to show you tonight is a little tool, and I don't think everybody knows that we've got this little tool. You know, we've got some indicators in your Object Trader suite that are pretty good. I mean, you know, I'll just show you a few of them just to give you an example. All right. Basically, if you go down to all the Object Trader indicators, you know, this apparent swing, that's actually a support indicator, basically. It draws these swings and everything. Bar colors and all that, you're just normal with, you know, we've got auto fibs on here. But there's one down here called Object Trader TrueTrend that we haven't talked a lot about. But now what TrueTrend actually does is you just simply set it up to draw trend lines on your chart. And the way I had this little tool designed is it's just simply a background drawing tool and also a bar color drawing tool. And you can set it any colors you want. You know, if these colors are a little bit off to you or anything like that, you can certainly, you know, change it. You can even do a lot of different things with this. You know, you have basically what we call major parameters. Okay, this is more what we call setting the major trend line. And then we have a minor trend line that simply just changes the color of the bars themselves. Okay, and I'm going to show you exactly how to use this tool. Now, if you ever want to change, you know, for instance, the opacity of the background or anything like that, this can all be changed in here, and then just right click and set it as your default. Okay, but we defaulted it, you know, pretty much the way it needs to be as far as that goes. I changed my line to solid instead of dashed. You might want to do that with yours. You know, it's up to you. Dashed lines, sometimes you can't see when a bar goes through a you know, empty space. So I've changed mine to solid. But anyway, once you put the tool on your chart, you'll have two buttons up here. One's called Set Major, and one is called Set Minor. Okay, now what these do is you just simply, if you click this Set Major, that brings up a line. Okay, now this line can be basically like any line on NinjaTrader. You can angle it, you can move it, and you can angle it with this one also. Okay, so basically you can angle it up or down, and you can angle it up or down on this end also. And then the move is always in the middle. Okay. Now, what you always want to do, though, is make sure that this third dot is within your price range. That's very important, because what the deal is, if you set this, well, let's say that I set it right now. Let's just go ahead and set it. All right. And we'll set it just like that for right now. All right. And if we engage that, you'll notice that I had little bars above that. But see how this third dot's way out here? It can't calculate this because there's nothing to calculate. There is no price action out here, but there is inside the pricing. See? So that's extremely important, okay? Because notice that we had a red background. We didn't need a red background, but it can't calculate when it's out here. You know, there are basically points all over these charts, but the way a line works in NinjaTrader is a line has to actually have that third dot inside the price. Now on the Wedge Trader, you don't really have to do that. our program, I think, figured out a way around this. But, you know, with TrueTrend, this is exactly the way it does, okay? Now, what TrueTrend will simply do is if the prices are above the line, you're going to be green. And if the prices are below the line, you're going to be red. It's really that simple. Okay, let's say, for instance, you drew this right here, like so, and engage this. See, we basically have, whoop, put the wrong one on. Bear with me a second. I'll get rid of that. We'll clear the minor. We don't need it. And we'll just reset the major. See, if you want to reset something on here, keep in mind that it doesn't undraw things. So, you know, for instance, if you engage it and you've got your red here and you've got your green here, okay, just because you move it around doesn't change anything, okay? You'll have to actually reset the indicator. For instance, if I was to go from up here down through here and reset this, let's say if I set it like that, you'll notice that, see, it still gave the green above here, okay? Now, that's your main indicator. That's the main one called the major one. The minor one simply does the bar color, and the way it works, and you still have to make sure you get your third dot inside the pricing. The way it works is it changes the dots or the bars to blue for above. Okay, so you basically have a minor trend line and you have a major trend line. Now, the only reason that we developed this tool was simply because there are times when you look at a chart, like this right here to give an example, and could this actually have been a trend change? Anybody? Well, it possibly could have, right? Because if you would have drawn a trend line down through here, you would have gotten long on this thing. You see what I mean? Even though the background here is red and all that. So basically, what I personally like about this, and you can even use Object Trader with this also, you know, just simply right click and go down to your Object Trader strategy and put it on your chart. And you can actually use it just like you're drawing these trend lines on here. Okay, so this can be very powerful for you. You know, you don't have to worry about, you know, stealth lines. You don't have to worry about mid bands or things like that. Now, I would recommend being careful because a lot of times, you know, they'll really bring a trend down, for instance, and if you draw it too tight, you may get a little scalp or something, but you won't get much more than that because the trend was still to the downside. You know, for instance, if you had drawn it right across here, like so, and engaged it, see, that's all green back here, but notice my bars here are different colors because my minor trend we're not really concerned about. I usually just use this one myself. Let's go ahead and reset it. And the way to reset this thing is just simply go and reload NinjaScript. Okay, now if you've got Object Trader, you want to be careful doing that if you got a trade on or anything. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on how that works so far? Because what I personally like to do with it is I like to watch the, you know, like an ABC and then get a little swing area, you know, draw a trend line. That can be a pretty powerful way to trade. Let's see, how do you get the engaged bottom to show up? You mean this right here? PW, on your question? The bottom. You're talking about these numbers? On the top. Let me get rid of stealth here. We don't really need stealth right now, not for this particular deal that we're doing here. Just one sec. Now let me just redo my template. I've got a template for this one. I call it Object Trader TrueTrend. And I'll post this, you know, on the website so everybody can get to that. No, the top next to the set major, I'm still not following. I don't guess PW. Set major, all these icons here to the left, you mean? Because this has to do with TrueTrend right here. Whereas the engage, oh, you have to actually set it first. Okay. For instance, let's say I thought this might short, for instance, okay, if I hit set major and I drag my little line down, I make sure it's in my prices, and then let's say that I bring it up like so. Okay, if I engage that, that's going to be green, but it will go red if it goes below that line. Okay, so, for instance, let's say that you were trading this like that and you thought, okay, well, let's just see if it'll work. Let's just do an object trader on it and we'll see. All right, so what I'll do is I'll actually do a wedge on here, and we do that with the ray. So we'll do it exactly along that line right there, say, and let's just see if we get a trade of some kind on a trend line. Let's fast forward this just a little bit. And it could break up as far as that goes too, but we could also do a trend line across here. Well, it's already broken across that, so we probably wouldn't want to do this now because it is heading up a little bit right now. Let's see what it does, just for the fun of it. We'll do like 10 ticks and just see if we can get a $200 bill. Okay, let's see. We did not fire my wedge just yet. Now see how this is actually doing here too? You've got your line. Let me get this out of the way for just a second. Let's go ahead and do our line again, just one sec. And by the way, you can actually do your wedge line if you want to instead on your chart. Just simply use the wedge line instead of this, because you know what color things are, right? If it's, prices above, you're green. If prices are below, you're red. So you really don't need, this feature unless you just really want it. But, what I personally like about this particular little feature here is that you can actually get in some pretty decent trades. For instance, like right now, let's see, this is actually trying to head down, isn't it? So far, you hit what, 5107? You tried to hit it again. Let's just get rid of the clear major, and let's see if we can get a trade. I'm gonna go ahead and draw right through here, just for the fun of it right there. And let's just see if we get that trade. I did draw that with a trend line, so it should. Still got my trend line drawn. Two o'clock in the morning, I never trade this time of night, so this is probably pretty slow. See if we can get something here. So this would be, in a case like this, you would be using your bottom button on your wedge. This would be a short out, touch plus. Just go ahead and do touch plus one. See if we can get something. This is a downtrend so far. You can tell it over here. Back up to the top. That's probably a phantom more than likely. Show you a little bit more about how to use that TrueTrend when we get, for instance, if we head down, it looks like it's trying to because that double topped up there. But let's just see. If it breaks, it breaks. Okay, we broke. All right. So let's just try to get down. Well, we got it. We got $80, didn't we? Okay. See how drawing trend lines on your chart can do a pretty good job like that. And if you actually use this little tool here, to see, for instance, what color is the background on this thing right now? Well, if you drew a trend line right here, this would all be red, right? So let's do our little set major and see what it looks like. And see, if you were using this in real time, this is when this would change red, is when it broke that trend line right there. Okay, which is actually pretty cool. Now let's see if it somehow does it to where we can actually go the other way with the trend line if we get a break above here. Let's see if we get anything like that. Maybe. You want to try it and see? Well, you definitely had a thrust down and retrace, so that's 2 points you can put the trend line. So let's see if it works out. I'm going to actually even do 2 for 10 ticks. Let's see if we get something. I did a little trade this morning, as a matter of fact, with oil. I got up at 5 a.m. this morning, and about 5 a.m., it looked like it was really heading down, but it was retracing a little bit, so I drew a trend line. And I'll show you here in just a minute, Lewis, on that 50% deal too. Let's see if we get a little trade here. Touch +1. And by the way, we can go ahead and re-engage this here, and you'll see that it's actually still down. It doesn't automatically keep doing this. That's going to be different on Ninja 8, by the way. I'm going to really revamp this tool in Ninja 8. No problem. All right, we'll get it. Let's see if we get something here. Now, if it still heads down, couldn't we go ahead and have a trend line drawn anyway, though, just in case this was decided to head up a little bit? And by the way, if it gives you another chance to draw the trend line, you can certainly do that. That's actually going above my line. See the little green starting to show? Let's see what it does. There we go. We just got another trade. All right. And we got resistance right up here. So couldn't we just go ahead and take some profit right up here, since we've only got one contract or 2 contracts, but one target is all? Put our stop just right under here, like so. All right. See how trend lines can work? I think they're better than moving averages, actually, because the way we draw 4 range bars on our charts really gives you a good opportunity to get some good trades with trend lines. And that's why I actually developed the wedge tool in Object Trader, and also the TrueTrend. I think I'm going to try to put TrueTrend into Object Trader the next time around, so that you could actually just simply, punch a little button and TrueTrend will come up, and you'll be able to just draw your lines on your charts with Object Trader. That's what I'm hoping to do. We'll see. Okay, so we did get a trade, right? Let's see if it works out. If it stops us out, we'll be at break even or under. And that's quite decent so far. So you've got a little trade that's actually paying off. See there? By the way, you can just chase this target. The way this thing's going up, I'd probably chase my target, actually. You might take one off now, if a bar closes down. If it doesn't close down, I'd stick with it. Yeah, definitely stick with it. And that bar might close down. We'll see. Pretty good way to utilize the trend line, don't you think? Now, notice that my background and everything is based on TrueTrend. It has nothing to do with anything else except this TrueTrend indicator right here. Now, I'm not saying to change your way of trading or anything, because we have a really great way of trading to begin with. Probably should have taken one off there. We'll see if this bar closes up. Nice and tight, just in case. Exit on close. Does anybody see where you could actually pretty much draw a trend line right now even? You know, could we actually do that? Well, as a matter of fact, this is still going, isn't it? Let's get that out of the way. But let's draw a true trend and let's just see where it's going. I'm going to clear major and we'll set major. That's the trend. See where it thrusts retrace? That so far is it, but also you could even tighten it. For instance, go to this leg instead. And then engage it. And of course, it'll be green above it and it'll be red below it. Okay? Now, I don't like this particular one because this is really heading up. I'd like for it to do a retrace so I could draw a trend line, because your best trend lines are not quite straight up like that. That'll get you out kind of early out of a trade. Wow, that's a killer trade. I'll probably put my stop just under that trend line. Okay, now that is a trend line right there. Let's see if it holds. We'll go ahead and move this out of the way. By the way, if you hit $1,000, you could hit the close button on your trade really easily and quick. No heat with that trend line either, was there? Now, what you could do also, look at this. You could actually, let me slow this down for just a second, because I talk about this all the time in the trading room. Could you actually use like a wedge, flip it right on up there, get your target way out of the way, and just simply go wedge, short below 2 contracts because you're still in 2, and it would simply, if it touches below that line, it would get you out of the trade. Could you flip it? Somebody asked that. Well, if you did this, you could. You want to try it? We'll do it with, if it breaks that trend line, we'll flip it and see if we can get a little 10-tick trade. That's now an uptrend though, so I'd be careful with that. But let's just try it. We'll see if we flip it. The B button. Okay, there's your red. And we didn't get, there we did. We flipped it. All right, we'll just try to get right down to here with our trade. Could you put 4 contracts on exit to reverse the trade? It did reverse the trade, Bruce. See, we had 2 on and it put 2 back on. So what it does is it actually sells the 2 and reverses 2. If you would have put 4, it would have reversed for a total of 4. Okay. So, you know, that can be pretty powerful actually right there, is this reverse enabled right here. Now keep in mind, if this thing keeps going up, I probably ought to protect it just in case it decides to keep blowing up through here. Because remember, those tight trend lines don't always work like this. Okay, they don't always work like this. Because that is a very, very tight trend line. I would more than likely, if I was trading this one in real, I would probably just simply get out of the trade, not reverse it. Because if you looked at the overall on your normal chart, that definitely wouldn't be a short. Will it work out? Well, it might. It did break the trend line, but like I said, I don't like that tight of a trend line. They're too much where they'll barely break them, see, like that, and then take you out. You see, you lost some money on that. But let's just see if, just for the fun of it, now I've got a little trend line I can draw, don't I? Let's see if we can get a wedge. Breaking that trend line. not there yet. It's got a touch +1 at least. And there it is. All right. I would probably, in a case like this, I would probably put my stop just above this swing though. Because again, that's just simply taking a trend line break. And you probably don't want to get in the habit of doing that. We may luck out on this one if that's going to be about it. Because what you want to do usually, if you're going to use a trend line type trade, is I would probably go a little bit more even with stealth or something like that, or about a 45-degree angle or close to it. You know, this one looks like it's going to work though. Let's see if we can get down there. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and do one more if it breaks that trend line again. Let's just see. We had $1,000 though, didn't we? Well, we're going to either get it fast or lose it fast. Let's see if we can take some coin right here. And by the way, if you readjust this little line, wow, we got a good trade on that, didn't we? Let's go ahead and go to break even. Ride your runner. All right. What if you weren't even in a trade just yet? Let's use TrueTrend and see if we can get in something. I'll just close this out. We'll get rid of all lines. We're going to see if we can get this trade. See it right there? That's a little thrust down retrace. So let's see if we can get that trade. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our major. We don't really care about this back here, by the way. All right, so that's all green. So let's do a wedge. Short, let's do 2 if it breaks. Now, it may not break because that could be a mid-band. I'm just strictly doing trend lines. Let's just see if it works. It's either that or it's going to keep heading up. We'll find out. That looks like about a mid-band trade to me. Strictly looking at a trend line. Let's see if it does it. We'll put a nice tight stop if it does. That way we don't get messed out of our $1,000. Now everybody see when I put that trend line and the price is above it, it's that button right there, right? So we're shorting it, touch +1. And we just got a trend line break again. Everybody see that? So trend line, now notice how this does this red and everything else. That's because basically it touched that line. Now if you redo your clear major and set major, you'll find that it's actually right back where it needs to be. And like I say, I just use this trend line mostly just to kind of see what's going on with the actual. So it did break the trend line, didn't it? And by the way, always get one target out of the way, look to the left to trade the right, always. They've already checked that swing, so I would actually think they'd come down to here, truthfully. If they break, that is. So I'd probably put that down there, and I'd probably put my stop just above the swing, exit on close. Let's see if we continue getting something. And by the way, if you were in 2 and you wanted to add more to it or something, you could actually just readjust your little wedge line. And let's don't do 4 though. Let's do 3. We just got 3. See how easy that works? Trendline breaks. I think it can change your trading because I've talked to a lot of people that really like this. And if you draw on your charts and everything, you can pretty much see where the trend will change back the other direction when it decides to. You know, for instance, right now this thing's heading down big time, but can you already see a trend line you could draw? You basically got a trend line right through here, like so. That's a 45-degree angle. Now, if they get a thrust down and a retrace and we're able to draw it tighter, we'll go ahead and draw it tighter and see if we can get a reversal type trade. You liking something like this? It's pretty cool. All right, so let's do our little set major, clear major, set major, and we'll do it from up here. We'll just go along that trend line for right now, just engage it so that, whoop, didn't put our third dot, did we? Got to put that third dot inside the price. There we go. Purple is the major. What is the blue line for? The blue line, I'm actually using Wedge, Donald, on your question. That's actually an indicator, pardon me, that's a object type that we use in Object Trader. That's called a wedge trade. See, Object Trader is much more than just regions. You know, a lot of people think that you've just got a bunch of, you know, like box trades and things like that. But I developed Object Trader where you get regions, bar close, PM12, predictor, ray, sniper, stealth, time trade, and wedge. And it can make a world of difference in how you trade. Let's just see if we can get another trend line if we get taken out of this trade at all. We're going to move this. Obviously, we would go to right there with our stop, right? And even possibly even with stealth. Okay, but be careful doing it with stealth because you'll get taken out of trades too quickly. I'd probably back it up to the previous swing. That way you're protected. If you want to get rid of one of the contracts, just cover it. Okay. Let's see if we can draw a trend line if this thing does what we want it to do. Because what are they doing all day? They're roller coastering, you know, and you can draw trend lines and you can get trades. Let's see if we can figure out a trend line on this little jewel. I speeded it. I sped it way up. I speeded it. That sounded like Trump. Confetti. By the way, just a real quick heads up on that. Do you know when he actually tweets and misspells things? There are people figuring out the method to the madness. You might look it up on the internet. It's pretty cool. Some of those words that he misspelled, like smocking gun, you know, nobody, you know, with a fourth grade education would spell smoking with a C, but he does that on purpose, actually. And there's some good videos that'll show you why he does it and how it relates to other things that are going on. There's a guy named Cyril Brains 2 on the internet that decodes these things, and it's pretty interesting. All right, now notice something here, anybody? Don't you have a trend line you could draw on this chart? Okay, so let me ask you a question here real quick. You see 2 points right here, right? See, big thrust retrace. So could you actually do a wedge like so and reverse this little jewel if it takes it out? Let's go ahead and tighten it just a little bit right across there. And I'd probably go ahead and cover one of these because that took out that low. But could we actually do this if it breaks that wedge? Let's just see if it works. Let's keep this out of the way. Of course, we bring our stop way down, obviously. But could you even, you know, keep in mind that I don't have to reverse this trade. I can just simply use this LE to take off one contract if it goes above that trend line. I don't have to reverse. It's worked so far, though. I like it. But let's say that you didn't want to reverse and you just want to scale out of this thing if it goes above this trend line. Well, you can do that. What if you readjust the trend line? See how it's thrust retrace trying to go down again? Could you redraw this like this? Something like that. And actually get out of the trade flat. See how easy that works? Just takes it right out on a trend line. What if I decided, though, that I wanted to go long on this thing if it goes above my trend line? See my trend line right through there? Could that possibly work? Let's try it for, what do you want to try it for 10 ticks, or you want to just go for the gusto? If it breaks it. Because see, we've got a trend line, so we know that if it breaks the trend line, we could very possibly go up. If it continues down, we'll draw it differently. But we got our trend line drawn. There's green showing up, trying. Well, we're long above a trend line. So let's get our target out of the way. We'll get another one up to a resistance area like right there. And we'll ride our trade. And I would probably even do another one if it breaks that same angle without taking out my lows. Now, I'd probably put, just in case, because this is pretty short, I'd put my stop just under that swing. Okay, notice that we didn't even use backgrounds or anything. We just simply used trend lines. Okay, and that works pretty well, especially with us using 4-range bars, because 4-range bars form a lot of lightning, don't they? Exactly. So could you quit for the day? Probably pretty easy, couldn't you? Okay, but could you draw a trend line to actually get out of this trade? Let's say that I'm in 3 and I want to protect some. Let's just see if this doesn't go any lower than here, this swing. And I'd probably even move this out of the way and just move my stop. Or could you just leave your stop alone and do a trend line? And the answer is you could do a trend line. Oh, we don't want reverse. We'll just take it off the table if it happens to take that out. Pretty good little trend line. Let's see if we can readjust it just a little bit. Pretty much right through there. See the thrust retrace? You could even move it right in through here just a little bit more. But be careful if you get it too tight. Like I said, you'll get stopped out. So I like to actually, kind of stay just a little under the little swings. That way you can stay with the trade, because this could go up. We don't know. Okay. But if it does break down, like let's say, okay, we're flat. Let's see if it'll do a mid-band trade, and we'll do a trend line. That looks like a mid-band to me. And by the way, you can use wedge in another way if you want to also. Draw a wedge underneath these lows here, like so. And if this thing decides to break down, you could actually go either way. See there? Kind of a cool way to trade, actually. Let's put a predictor on the chart and see where it's heading. Hey, still got white predictors right now. You haven't even changed trends, and yet we made some money going up. How about that? By simply using trend lines on our chart. Anybody have any questions on that so far? Because you're going to find out. And by the way, if you put your regular chart on here, that's back here. See, look what this is doing right now. See there? It's just basically in that little move right there is all it is. Isn't that something? Would you have ever taken a long there? Probably not. But with that trend line like that, you did. See there? So, like I say, this can be pretty powerful for you. And let's just see if what it does here, just real quick. Oh, we flattened somehow. Oh, that's right. We must have flattened. Let's see. I wouldn't let this go back any further than right across here if it does pull back. Let's see what we get here. Look at that. All right. Now, do you see a trend line along in here? Thrust retrace right here. You could actually do this like this. Take your trade off the table. You could even tighten your trend line or maybe take off some contracts. Sell one. That way you're only in one, because that looks like a thrust to me. And when you get bars like that, I don't like to stay with a trade, because basically when they do bars straight up, they're going to retrace on you. Now, do they do it right away? Normally right after they thrust, actually. Let's see, I didn't see where you selected this trendline tool from. It doesn't show on here. I can make it show on here. Let me just make it smaller so you can see it. It's going off on a different monitor. But if you go down here, see where this shows region, bar close, PM, PM2. Wedge is actually it's simply a tool that I had designed for Object Trader that trades like a region, but it trades like a triangle or a wedge, or with just a single ray. Okay, so what that means also is if you get in some of these situations where you got lower highs and higher lows, you can wedge it in. And what if this would have just decided to roll over here and headed down and tested these lows? It could have done that, and I could have grabbed that with a wedge line. Okay, like I say, this can be a pretty good way to trade. And if you do it on the actual chart like this, you're going to have to train your mind not to see some of these colors, because you can clearly see that this trend line was pretty much broken, wasn't it? Even if I pull it back a little bit like that, see how, if you would have boxed this in, you'd have gotten a nice long trade. Yeah, that's the way trend lines can work like that. Okay, let me show Lewis how to do those fibs real quick, and we'll get back with the rest of the webinar. All right, Lewis and anybody else, on the Fibonacci's, what you really want to do is, first off, when you draw them, I'm going to just draw them up here where they're not in price at all, but you'll notice that you have all the different ones here. If you double click on your indicator, it'll come up here like this. You can simply turn off everything but your 50% if you want to. If you were looking for 50%ers. Now, I highly recommend, I usually like to turn off 76, and I don't use 23.6 at all. Okay, I do like the 61, the 50, and the 38. But if you just wanted a 50 only, you just do it like this. And then right click and manage your template and name your template. Like I could call this my 50, for instance, and save it. Whoop, let's see, must enter a template name with minimum 3 characters. Okay, that's fine. We'll call it 50 temp then. Bear with me a second. 50 template. Can't even type tonight. There we go. All right, so you save it like that, and you'll notice then when you do it, see how it's just got the 0, the 50, and the 100. So for instance, if you were to do this from up here, we got to pull up the right template. We'll pull up the right template in just a second. You can set that as your default too, Lewis, and I'll show you how on TeamViewer if you need to even. But you just go up here and load the template, which is 50 template, and see there's 50% right there of that big move. Now it looks like to me it's heading up because it took out 50. Okay, but if it would have hit its head there and done like a trend line, yeah, that would be a good trade. Okay. Now notice that I didn't even end up using the little tool as much, except for just drawing on my charts. Okay. Now, one thing I want to advise everybody to do also, if you use the wedge tool, remember that wedge, if it's above a line, it's the bottom button, and if it's below the line, it's the top button. Okay. But if it's below and above like this, you want to just get rid of the one that it's not using anymore. You can actually just remove it. All right. But what if I wanted to protect my trade? Bring it down, bring it under here like that. And let's just see if that trend line holds for us. I'll just fast forward a lot. And if it makes another one, I'll go ahead and tighten it. Let's go ahead and see if it'll pop first, and I'll get a trend line drawn. Taking it out a little bit, isn't it? By the way, that's a mid-band trade, looks like to me. What if you saw that happening and you said, you know what? Gary said to draw trend lines on here. That's a little trend line right there, isn't it? What if I was to break that trend line and decide that I might be able to head up? Let's see if it does. Otherwise, it'll take us out, one or the other. But see how trend line, it's drawn perfectly? There you're in 3. Okay? That's how easy this little tool is to use. And could I protect this trade? Well, you could actually protect the trade. Let's get these out of the way for just a minute because I got this running pretty quick. Let's see if we get a little thrust retrace so that we can actually draw a trend line. That's pretty good. That's a little trend line, isn't it? What do you think? You want to draw a little trend line across there? Let's draw it. That's my little trend line right there, isn't it? Now, what if I wanted to get out of 2 of these or 1 of these if it happens to cross that trend line? Well, you could do that by just simply drawing your trend line. Let's redraw it. And we'll scale out of 1 if it takes out that trend line. We'll go to break even on our trade just in case. So if it breaks that trend line, we'll get out of 1, or you can get out of 2. Just it's on the fly. Wow. You got out of 2. See there? Pretty cool way to trade, don't y'all think? All right, so what would it take if this was to break down later on? You can clearly see a trend line that you could draw. Would that be breaking down if it broke that trend line? What do y'all think? You want to try it and just see if it does? We'll leave it 1 on and we'll reverse it with 2 if it breaks that trend line. We'll see. And I usually like to back it off just a little bit if I go against the trend. Getting a higher low. See, it just tagged that. We're just going to go for 10 if this breaks this, because this is heading up pretty mightily. We'll see if it even breaks it. Oh, and by the way, your wedge you can actually also use even flat if you want to. Okay, it doesn't have to be at an angle. Wedge can actually be like a sniper line if you want it to be. Let's say, for instance, that, let's turn this off for a second so that we don't accidentally get out of a trade. All right, let's put it flat instead. If it breaks this here, what do y'all think? You want to go ahead and short it? If it does, you could just turn this on if you did. Now remember, this is strictly using a trend line. We're not really looking at anything else. We're just simply looking at a nice trend line, which I could draw again, by the way. You can even draw it with a line. That way you don't accidentally get another wedge trade. See it right there? What if I thought, you know what? What if it breaks that little lightning to the downside? Could you short it? Yep. With our tools, you could if you wanted to. There you go. You just did. Protect your coin just in case, because, you know, the overall trend is still up. Everybody see that? Okay. Now, like I said, I probably wouldn't do it this particular way simply because you're really fighting against, you know, a missile going up, so to speak. So I would more than likely only get out of my trade instead of shorting it. Okay. But let's see if it works. Broke a trend line. It's going to have to hurry and work if it's going to work. Doesn't look like it. Still trying to head higher. I would close that out. I don't like that. It's holding support. Everybody see why I'm doing that? See how it bounced off support again? They're more than likely going to tag that. But could you be ready to take this trade, for instance, if it took out Lightning 3? Let's see if we can get a break of Lightning 3 even, just for the fun of it. See, tonight's webinar, basically just strictly drawing trend lines on your chart and seeing if you can get some trades based on either breaking or trend lines breaking. I see a trend line again, by the way. It just broke it already, though. So basically, right here, you're already breaking that. See there? Let's go ahead and I'm going to take that if I can get a better trend line drawn, because that actually broke support. Here we go. We're in it to win it. Let's see if it works. If not, we'll give up about $300. You might not want to give up that much, though. Let's just put our stop just a little above stealth. All right, but that does prove absolutely that trend lines work, doesn't it? Okay, let's see if we can figure out another trend line. Thrust, retrace, and we'll see if we can get it either direction. Let's see what it does. Wow, that's heading down pretty good. I'd like to have my mid-band, and you can put it on any chart you want to. I'm just strictly doing this with trend lines. Let's see if we can get one. No trend line yet. There's kind of one right there. Got this thing going 500 times, so if we get a trade or not, it's going to be pretty, very possibly will and possibly won't. I don't like that not going up there. I'm not going to turn that on yet. It needs to go at least to here. Let's see if something sets up. Yeah, that's what I was kind of afraid. Well, it might still. That would have gotten you a little trade. How about that? Little trend line break. Pretty cool, actually, huh? All right, let's see if we can go very possibly the other direction then, if it's going to possibly give us a trend line. Let's see here. Let's do about a 45 and see if we can get something. Strictly for 10 ticks. So we could actually deactivate the regular background to use Trend Trader with all the rest for a template indicator. Yeah, you can do anything like that you want, Walter. You know, the one thing the reason that we do these charts like this, let's see right here, is so that it gives a person a real good idea of where these trades are going. Okay, because you could still do it, just, kind of ignore some of the other stuff. Let's see if we can get a short based on a trend line break, just for the fun of it. I'll put the strategy back on. And I'm going to draw a trend line only when I get a thrust and a retrace, so I can draw a line if we get it. Otherwise, I'm going to wait for it. See if it gets it. There's a little thrust and retrace. We might be able to draw a trend line here. We'll see. What says the team? You see a trend line? We'll do 2. Draw a line here just in case. That's where it should hit its head. If it's going to hit its head a little early like this, let's see if it will. By the way, could you have taken a little trade long if you drew a trend line down along those lows? Yep. Let's see if something sets up. Still respecting my trend line so far. Okay, you're in, but this could be nothing but a little fake. That's more like a break out of a little box. Let's redraw our trend line. Yep, right there. Let's just add one. If it doesn't take us out of our stop, that is, it might take us out of our stop. That's one thing about a trend line. Like I said, if you get them too tight, they're going to usually a lot of times just barely break it. Yeah, that one's going to get us. Let's put it on exit on close anyway. That one got us. All right, let's see if we can get another trade. It didn't hurt us, though. Still got our trend line intact. Let's try it. Now, I'd probably go ahead and be hitting one already, but let's just do the trend line. Just to see if trend lines work today. I'm going to do 1. Goes below that. There we go. We're in. Trendline break. We did get stopped out of the other one. And like I said, the reason for that is because of this right here. That is too tight. You're going to find that anytime that line's almost straight up, they don't work. You got to get them closer to 40 to 45 degree angle. On these smaller runs, like there we go, we got profit. I should have not taken it off the table. All right. Let's draw a trend line again, just for the fun of it. And I usually like to back them off just a little bit, just in case. Just in case they tag them and then, roll over. Because, see, this is a short background, so we could easily go the opposite direction instead, right? Okay. That looks like a decent one, but the way I like to do these personally, if you do a trend line like this, is you want to actually get out quickly if it goes back against you, like that. See how it went back below mid-band? Okay, so let's redraw our little line right here a little bit more and see if we can get something. It's actually starting to head up. You got a high and a low. Just kissed trend line. There was a little white box. Remember that this morning in the room? Now you could actually redraw your, you could use your ray even as a box even if you want to. Remember that box we drew in the room this morning? That's a little bit of a cheat because I did know where that one was going because we took that trade in the room this morning. Everybody remember that trade this morning? That was a little monster. All right. So what it really boils down to is we can all use these trend lines and do a pretty darn good job of making some decent coin, right? And if you're in multiples like this, scale out if you want to. Let's just get rid of this. Why is that not? There we go. All right, let's move these targets up, but see a trend line along in here? Could you actually scale out of this thing, even with stealth to give an example? Like scale out of 1 to give an example? You could do that by just scaling, by drawing trend lines underneath your lows. This thing went pretty good this morning, didn't it? Remember this trade that we talked about this morning in the room? Could you draw a trend line, or could you even use power meter? We didn't get the chance to talk about power meter, but if that goes red, you can click the button. Or you can use our tool called power meter, and if it goes red, you'll actually get out of the trade. And, I scaled out of 1. Sorry about that. Should have scaled out of both of them. Well, let's see if we can get in another trade then. We'll do it with the trend line. Got to get a thrust retrace so we can get a trend line drawn. And that looks like that's going to be a tight trend line to begin with. But we just missed it. I'm going to take it anyway. We called that trade this morning in the room, if everybody remembers right. I've got it going 500 times, so I missed it. Everybody see how to use your trend lines and everything, though? How you can really make a big difference in your trading by using trend lines? When I talk about drawing a trend line in the room, sometimes that'll be too tight of a stop, and they'll just keep on trucking. But even just to give an example, this morning, I know Charles held a ES trade right into a previous support, and I took it out more on a trendline break, and then I got back in at support. So basically was able to not feel some of that heat coming back, because you can feel heat coming back if you're not careful. For instance, is there a trend line drawn here? The answer is yes. Could we protect that trade based on that trend line? Yes. Double topped, and you're flat. Ready for another trade? Let's do a trend line. Double top. Where's it coming back to? Well, you don't know yet, but you can get your trend line ready. See if we get a little, well, too late. It bounced off of mid-band. Waited too late on that when I was drawing my trend line. That's one thing about moving stuff 500 times. It moves pretty quick. Okay. Anyway, that's probably enough. What do y'all think? Is that a good way to draw on your charts and make sure that you get some good trades? Even after 3 months, I always pick something up. Thanks for your expertise. Oh, no problem. I mean, the whole thing is that if a person really learns to use trend lines and also, look to these phantoms, look to the mid-band trades, you don't always get, basically if you box in, for instance, okay, there's going to be times that it's going to be more of a breakout trade. Can you actually already see a trend line on this chart right here, though? Let's draw it and see if we can get it. And this will be the last one that we'll do. We'll see if we can get a trend line break. Ooh, that one's heading lower. Went through mid-band. All right, let's turn on our touch +2. Move our trend line just a little bit. Like I like to do, away from, if you get a little swing, pull it away just a little bit so you don't get wicked in. That's a pretty good trend line, by the way. It's a little steeper than I like, and by the way, you can even, just in case, so you don't get wicked in, you can reposition your trend line until you see where the thing's going. Now that looks like that's going to be a phantom, doesn't it? So if you saw that come down to line 1, could you actually go ahead and grab some coin? Or what if this thing just keeps heading down, but instead it broke a trend line and headed up? And by the way, I called that trade in the room this morning too. That was a perfect phantom trade. And you can take that trade based on that trend line too. Okay. Beauty of trading trend lines. You notice that we only missed like one trade, and that one was too tight on our little trend line. That's why I recommend, when you're able to draw it, don't turn these on yet, because it doesn't normally move 500 times. You got some time. Okay. So be sure when you are able to draw a trend line, just back it up just a little bit. Okay. Because you can actually get in this trade here on a 1, 2, 3 reversal, and then even add another one when it breaks the trend line. Okay. So everybody see how to use TrueTrend, and also to be able to use the Wedge Trader. Now keep in mind that this wedge is simply just like a region. All right, I'm going to just draw a box. When you do a region trade, all right, that's not our region. I'm just drawing a box. But the bottom of that box is the B button, and the top of the box is the B button. T button, pardon me. B button, T button. And it's the same thing for these wedges. If I do this and draw this trend line like so, this is the B button. All right, so where's my T button? Well, it's not on here right now. It would be on this wedge. See, that would be your T button right there. Okay. Now, what if I wanted to take a trade if it actually just bounced off of here? Well, you could do that. I just missed it because it's going 500 times. But see how that bounced right off that line? I can actually do that by just simply turning this on and this on right here. And if it gets within 2 ticks, see how it just kicked in a contract extra? It's definitely a good way to trade. You'll find you can do quite well with these trend lines. And, if you look at your chart and everything, when would this trade actually even change trends more than likely? Well, draw your trend line on your chart and you'll probably see it sometime. Whoop, that's a regular line. Let's draw a trend line. Let's just for the fun of it, see if it ever breaks that, if this thing breaks down. Let's just check it. Still running 500 times. And I'd back it off just a little bit. Let's just see if it does finally break it. We closed the room at 10 o'clock, so we know it didn't break it before then. Hopefully this won't take too long to check that. At 500 times, it should go pretty quick. Probably not quick enough, though. Even at 500 times, that's fairly slow, so I guess we won't. Anybody check their chart and see if they broke this trend line, did they actually head down? Or did they break it? Let's look for the fun of it. Okay, we've got it at 854. They broke it. Okay, Mindy says they broke it. And, the way we look at charts and everything, you can tell, for instance, if they break this swing right here, they're more than likely heading down, but you probably want to wait for them to come back and kiss and roll. But couldn't you draw trend lines on your chart too? And it's definitely a good way to trade. And it'll also tell you when the trend changes too. Larger trends and even smaller trends. Went down to where it started even, huh? Okay. Well, that's good to know. See, it's starting to break it. Actually, it bounced off of it, didn't it? See there? Trend line. Well, anyway, we know that it did, so I guess it doesn't matter. But if you'll learn to draw your trend lines on your charts, and keep in mind that if they do go against you at all, for instance, could you draw a trend line right along in here right now? I can see one. It's pretty much right through there, and it's already breaking it, actually. But let's just draw it right here for the fun of it and see if we can get it. We'll do one contract. Yeah, we'll do two. All right, now keep in mind if I've got B and T button, that it just has to go long inside that line, which is the same thing as outside that line. If I did outside the line, then it just has to go within 2 ticks of the bottom of that line, and Object Trader will fire. Okay, let's see if it does anything. That's a little later than I wanted it. Got it anyway, though. Trendline break. What do y'all think? Absolutely a good way to trade. Okay. So I ran about 11 minutes over, and I apologize for that. Did I miss any questions at all? Let's see, Lewis, for now on the chart, we can use a trend line to make sure we get in on a phantom. And yeah, absolutely. Use it for phantoms, so that you don't get faked in where they start heading down instead of up, or vice versa. Let's see if so we could deactivate the regular back. Yes, went over that one. Can you just have it permanent on your chart without a template? Yeah, you can actually set this on your chart without a template if you want to. I'll make this template available that I was using, this one right here. Now see, of course, obviously we haven't readdressed it since then because this actually is heading up. So if you cleared your major and put your major back on, you'd clearly see pretty much from even here that you're heading up, right? See there? Okay. All right. I think I got all the questions. Let's see. Could you show how you set this true trend line tool up from the start? David, I apologize. David left and I didn't get his question. I'll tell him in the room tomorrow. But I'll actually put this template on the website tomorrow after the room closes, and it'll be called Object Trader TrueTrend. Okay, and just remember when you use it, if you get it out of kilter, you don't care about this stuff back here. You're not trading back here. So, if you want to reset this thing, just with Object Trader, don't. But if Object Trader is not on the chart, just simply, reload your template and you'll be back in business. But keep in mind, Object Trader will go away if you set a template. Okay, and I'll go over that for David. If you were setting your minor, for instance, or your major, just simply draw your line, engage. Okay? All right, and I'll go over this a little bit more in the future because I want to actually add this to Object Trader, where the line that we draw will also draw the colors of the chart and everything from Object Trader. Okay? Thanks, everybody, for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. I try to make it where they're informative, but also where we can all make some money with trading these things, because you could clearly see little long trade. That one was pretty much just straight down. You might have gone through here instead, but yeah, they'll make you money. All right, this is Ninja 7, Kathy, on your question. I don't have TrueTrend in Ninja 8 yet. I wasn't going to add it to it because we weren't using it in the room, but I think I will add it. I can probably get it built for, since he's already got the code and everything, he's just got to change a few things. All right. I think that little indicator cost me about $600 too. It was not cheap. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in the morning. Good night.